Welcome to the podcast. We are with Ella. And how do you pronounce your first name? Is that Gav?
Gav. Yep.
Gav. Where are you from, Gav?
Originally from Baltimore, Maryland, but for 2022, it'll be pretty much a different state each month.
Nice. I love the traveling for crypto.
Traveling to meet people from the internet. Spent 2021 building up a lot of connections and an audience, and now hosting and speaking at a few different conferences this year, and just trying to meet about 500 people in person from Twitter.
That's incredible. Will you be at NFT NYC?
Yes, and I also applied to speak, and I'm putting together my presentation for it. I would like to do a full-on presentation on how to conduct due diligence in NFTs using traditional equity due diligence. So should be something interesting.
That's awesome. I'll be speaking there, so I look forward to seeing you.
Very cool. What are you speaking on?
I'm speaking on the future of NFTs. I'm still working on my thesis exactly. I've written it, and then news comes out, and I've rewritten it. And then news comes out, and I've rewritten it, So I feel like there's going to be a lot of revisions between now and then. But it's more about, the total utilities that we have with NFTs, the real-world access, how it applies to each and every business, and why each and every business should care about it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's NFTs, like you said, August is when it first started becoming slightly more mainstream. But still today, it's like people just, they know the word NFTs, know the buzzword. And any of us who are in the space, you're probably the person in your friend group, in your community, and wherever you live, where it's like, oh, you're the NFT guy. So when they want to know anything about NFTs, it's like, oh yeah, go speak to that person. You heard of the metaverse? Go ask that person. It's like, and there's always that one guy in each friend group who they know of as a NFT person.
Yeah, and honestly, in my in-person life, not that I interact with that many people, but nobody is interested in NFTs in my in-person life, at all. So it's still, I think, pretty early.
Ella, have you met any IRL people with NFT interests?
Interestingly, I have the exact same issue. I have family members who are in the traditional finance world, and they sort of looked at me like I'd grown an extra head or something. But it's crazy gambling, and I'm like, no. It's not all about that at all. But there is an element of that in it, for real. So it's actually really interesting to see someone who's actually from that traditional finance background moving into NFTs and crypto, I guess. I'm really curious to know, though, Wolf, how does your audience on Twitter compare to, the sort of people you normally talk to in your traditional day job? Are they a different crowd or the same crowd? Or?
Well, my day job is being on Twitter.
Cool.
Yeah, I did 42 hours of Spaces last week. So I think you could put it as a day job, yeah.
No, fair enough. Sorry, I mean, I phrased that really badly then. I was just sort of wondering what the transference rate was from people who come from your background in traditional finance to come over into the NFT world. Is it happening a lot? Is it not happening at all yet?
I think it's happening more. You're seeing people come in, and I also do a lot of spaces that are in both areas. So I think my audience kind of trickles in and starts to listen, and I've seen people that are classic Wall Street guys that work at the New York Stock Exchange that are now coming on my NFT spaces, and they're just listening. They're sitting there listening, or perhaps they run a hedge fund. I've had people like that that'll reach out to me and say, hey, I'm starting an NFT project. Are you the type of person, to work with for marketing on this? So yeah, there's definitely overlap from the traditional finance area. I'm trying to make it even more so. Like this Monday, I'm putting together a space, which is going to be a pitch your asset space. So I'm going to have one person from finance, one person from crypto, one person from the NFT spaces, and they're each going to pitch a project or a crypto or a stock. And I'm going to show people, hey, we can have a 7 to 10 minute pitch on 3 different areas, and this is how people would do it. So hopefully that appeals to a larger crowd.
That's awesome. You said that NFT spaces is your day job.
Spaces in general, not just NFT spaces.
Spaces in general. Have you monetized your spaces?
Yes. Well, some of them. There's a few pieces. One, everything's free to the end user. So I don't charge the end user anything. The ultimate goal of my page doesn't matter, who you are, where you are. You can learn how to invest in every major asset class for free from the best. That is the idea of the Wolf Spaces. But at the same time, I have to pay the travel bills and things like that. And so I do have a few sponsored spaces throughout the week where I will either work with the sponsor to highlight what their content is or what their project is or something like that. but always, a thoroughly vetted company. So right now I don't work with a ton of NFT projects. I'm leaning, I'm open to that area, but it's just I wanted to learn how to do really good due diligence first into that area before I highlighted any. So now I have a full, if any NFT projects ask me for, hey, can we do an AMA or something? They get like a packet of questions. So they're usually spending a couple of days answering the stuff that I send to them. But then on the other side, I work with currently a real estate company. I work with an app. It's a finance app. I work with a newsletter company. And these are real companies with employees and revenue and backgrounds and everything. So I'm very comfortable working with those. But the trade-off is you're probably going to get more money from something like an NFT project because they're going to recoup it so quickly, right? Versus some of these others where they're not necessarily seeing the payoff as quick. They're more doing it for users and exposure. So you kind of have to balance the scales a little bit. But yeah, it's been good. And luckily people are very willing to pay for spaces. It's just who you want to associate your brand with.
Yeah, I think the question of the day, that what I approached you with also was, you do so many spaces. I hopped into spaces when they first came out. I was super intrigued by them. And I was doing spaces for, 4 or 5 hours a day for about 2-3 months. And I was able to blow up my Twitter like that. But I got burnt out pretty quickly from it. It's very energy draining. Why do you do so many? And how do you have that stamina? How do you maintain that?
It's a good question. I think I've always been a speaker type person, love being in a position where I'm talking to large crowds, specifically where I'm moderating. And I think it all breaks down to two things. One, I like to outwork everybody whenever possible. And I like to surround myself with people that want to outwork. I think, I've never wanted to work 40 hours a week and be done with it and do other stuff, because my problem is if I don't schedule something with my time, I become unproductive, right? I default to the feel good type items that aren't maximizing, the potential that I think we each have. So to me, the more that I can pile on and the more I can schedule, the better I'm actually going to feel at the end of the day and the end of the week, because I know I didn't waste time. And then number two, I think it just comes down to personality, right? Like I'm a very curious person. So the way I run my spaces is I just help people with questions. And it's great because they answer it and I have another question to follow up and it just keeps them going. But I've always tried to put myself into these type of roles. When I was in college, I went to, a public speaking club and I learned how to do improv there and things like that. Because that's what I'm doing right now. It's like improv 8 hours a day. And I also ran and won for president of my class. I ran in politics. I'm still an elected official technically in Pennsylvania for another 2 months. I currently hold an elected term. So I just always tried to put myself in those positions because I think here's the biggest thing is I like to talk and I like to have my voice heard. And I think that if you are anything but the host and the moderator, you're going to have to sometimes take a back seat. And I just don't like taking a back seat. So I decided, I'll put in the time if it means I get to have that voice heard. And some would boil that down to maybe like childhood insecurities, but I think it all just works out for the best.
100%. People will, yeah, I'm sure people have a lot of thoughts, but I have that same drive that the overachiever mentality. If I don't have things, if I don't feel like I'm doing something productive and I don't have something that I'm doing, then I feel like I'm wasting my time. One problem that I found myself was I would find myself overworking, and then I would crash at some point and then just do absolutely nothing, where I'd find myself scrolling an Instagram Reels feed for 6 hours. And then it's 3 a.m. and I'm like, what am I doing here? And, I was speaking to my therapist about that idea recently, how, it's then my sleep cycle gets messed up. And then it's just, he equated it to a ship, you think the ship's sinking. So you run all the way to one side, right? Because you need a hustle. That's the overachiever mentality that we have. So we put all of our energy into our work. And then it's the part of yourself that's I need to be a human and I need to turn my brain off for a little bit. I need to eat some food, drink some water, get some rest. You then go do absolutely nothing for a bunch of hours. And you just go in this kind of seesaw where you're just on one side stuck for a while. It gets unproductive, so working for yourself and not doing the 9 to 5, not doing the 40-hour work week, escaping 9 to 5, you put in a lot more work. When it's your own company, when you're running your own business, you're working a lot more. So you're doing a lot more. And it's finding that balance of not being burnt out and not getting exhausted to to do 40 hours a week into spaces, like that's putting work in. And it's so draining. And, I done these spaces, and like you also with the crowds, I noticed how you have like different topics. You're switching up topics, and, that should be bringing in different crowds for different audiences, for different subjects. Sometimes you end up repeating the same things to the same people. It's not the same people, but it's the same person who comes in, who comes from the same background, asks the same questions in a slightly different way. And there comes a point where you just don't have the energy for it.
A few things to hit on there. One, you touched on sleep. That's what I think is the key to everything, is sleep. And people ask how I don't, haven't gotten burned out. Who knows about don't, but I'm very particular when it comes to sleep. I don't understand how people decide not to sleep. I make sure that I'm getting at least 7 hours a night, preferably 8 when possible. And I do that consistently. So I think that that's like something which I make sure is built into my day. Number 2, I think, is routine. Routine is like incredibly important to me. I think it's part of scheduling. So my whole life is scheduled like minute to minute, typically weeks out. Like, for example, today I got on for a Zoom call at 11:30. That went right until 12. At 12, I got off that one, got onto a second Zoom call. That went right till 12:45. At that one, I got off, got right onto the next Zoom call. That went literally until 1:31 and ran over a minute into this one. And then I got into this one, right? So I think that's routine, but also other things. So let me go on a limb and ask, are you Jewish?
I am.
Okay. Hard assumption, right? With our last names. So I'm Jewish too. I wake up in the morning. The first thing I do is I pray, right? So that's built into my routine. I'm going to get up. I'm going to pray. The next thing I'm going to do is, work out, then shower. And it's just like, as long as I think you're consistent, I think people get burned out because they have like no consistency or routine, and they're just throwing themselves into work and just into one thing. But like at the end of the night, like whenever I finish 10:30, 11, I drive over to my friend's house and I take 30 minutes to hang out with people. And then I come back and I go to sleep. Like there's like routine and pieces built in. And the last part on the energy, it doesn't matter how you are feeling. If you don't put in 110% energy and invigorate the room, your space is going to fail. And nobody's going to want to be in there. And you're going to see that reflected in audience size. And so it doesn't, Friday at 2, 3, 4 p.m., right? I've been going now for 40 hours throughout the week on spaces. I am tired and it's a lot going on. But if I don't get up there and put in, a voice and an energy and a passion that sounds like this is what I'd rather nothing else in the world than doing that in that moment, nobody's going to care about what I'm saying. So I don't think it matters how you're feeling in some instances. You have to put yourself in a position to succeed.
Agree. Hard agree on that. That's brilliant.
That's a fake until you make it, in a sense.
Yeah, except I don't think it's faking. I think it's just mindset, because I have this like hard approach to life that it's all mindset, right? It's every limitation is something that you're putting on yourself. When you say, I can't do this or it's not going to happen, I had no idea, what the potential was 2 years ago, but life changes very quick and it can change for good and for bad. There's been terrible things that have come out of nowhere and you just don't see them coming, and it messes your life up in a split second. And then really good things where it's like the biggest, change and it's for great, but it's not like you can't just sit back and be passive with it, right? You have to be active and aggressive and just have the mindset. So I'm a little bit lucky. Both my parents are certified life coaches. So I've kind of been like low-key therapist my whole life. So I think that that's like the mindset. And I think just more people have to lean into it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
You had to have had that exposure to healthy routine and healthy behavior to be able to maintain that, to take a full day of work and then have that half hour of going to a friend's house and be able to use that energy, that social interaction of a real life person, that's office space, that allows you to not be what I call it being on, right? When you're on a Twitter space, when you're hosting, when you're speaking people, you're on your work brain. When you're able to go off and you're able to take that half hour and use that to power the rest of your day, that's a tremendous amount of work to be able to get to that point.
Yeah. And I don't shut up when I go over there. Like, I don't shut up. I go over there and talk their ear off for another half hour. And I'll be like, okay, like, are you guys crypto staking in Terra yet? And they're like, what the heck? Like, what is this?
So you're talking
like,
crypto.
Pull out your computers. Like, yeah, whatever I want to talk about. Stocks. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're saying you get off crypto Twitter, and then you go to your friends and you're onboarding them into crypto as well, into finances.
Whatever exciting things I learned that day. And to be honest, bringing it back one more time, I think it's great that we're doing it in spaces because it all goes back to like the experiences you had growing up, right? And like not to like be harsh to like a lot of kids, like myself included, like a lot of stuff that we're like blabbering about as kids and talking, like people don't care. They don't really care. It's not like important stuff that we're saying, but if there's somebody that's listening and acts like everything we're saying is incredibly important, we're probably going to keep talking, right? We're probably going to keep putting stuff out there in the world. So I think I was really lucky that I'm sure growing up as a kid, I was just saying a lot of stuff and like probably a lot of it didn't mean anything. It was like very useless and pointless, but people are like, oh, wow, like that's great. That's awesome. And like people positively reinforce. So I think with spaces right now where like people are having opportunity to come on stage and speak, and then people are like, that's great, like keep talking. I think it's a very positive thing. And of course, as the host, I'm kind of in the center of just like all of that positive reaffirmation. So it makes it very easy to just continue doing it.
That makes a lot of sense. I get the exact same from mine. Like really, it's the exact same feeling. It's just amazing being the host and exactly everything you said. Can I circle back on something you said before? Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah, you were talking about doing due diligence on the people that do the paid slots in your spaces, and obviously that's all right and proper. What I'm kind of wanting to know really is, particularly in the area of financial stuff where it all gets quite dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, what are the key red flags you're looking for when you're doing that due diligence?
So into NFT projects or into other areas?
Well, are there any that apply across the board, or would there be a different set for both?
So it's a good question. Yeah, it does go across. So, okay. So if we're really getting into it, there are technically 5 areas that I look into. And I think that these go across the spectrum of crypto, NFT, and stocks that you can go into the back. The first area that I look into is leadership. So I want to see a docs team with a strong background that has previous success. I want them to be transparent. I want them to be communicative. And I want them to have an emotional attachment to whatever they're working on. So it doesn't matter if this is a company, an NFT project, whatever. I think all those things stand. The second part that I look for is social presence, right? So if they are really passionate about this and they've been doing it online and they're putting stuff out, they should have growth, right? They shouldn't have just 10 followers. They should have a Discord that's built out with a lot of different channels. They should have perhaps an Insta and a TikTok. They should have relationships and partners within the community that, I can talk to and get info like, hey, how's it been working with this person? Because I'm a very like relationship based, person. And then 3, I look at product, which is also utility and innovation. I look at what problem are they solving? Like, does this need to be a thing? Like, are you just creating, Gorilla Monkey Community Club because you want money or because there's an actual problem to be solved? And then I look, of course, within that, you can look at a roadmap, right? You can look at, hey, are they doing staking and airdrops and the DAO and tokens? But if you're going down a stock, right, you can look at, hey, like, why is your company going public? I have companies that are going public that come to me and say, hey, we want to come on your spaces and talk about why we're going public. It's the same thing, right? Like, what's your roadmap? Which sounds weird to them, but like kind of is the same thing. Number 4, I look at governance, which is a little bit different from leadership because governance, in my opinion, is what does the holder own? What decisions do they get to help make? How are they directing the company? Do they get to elect ambassadors, supply management? Like, what are they doing for me as a holder? And then the last one, which goes a little bit more into the numbers, is data analysis. So when it comes to NFTs, you can look at volume and insider ownership and the number of holders and syndicates and the cost that it mints at and supply and demand. And you can take all those things over to stocks, right? You can look at large cap, small cap. You can see insider ownership percentage. You can see unusual options activity. So I would say those 5 areas of data analysis, governance, utility/product, social presence, and leadership are like my process for vetting a company or project in any area.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, with the percentage of projects in the NFT space that turn out to be rugs, I mean, you've got to have a pretty strict process, right? I'm sure it's the same with penny stocks as well, right? Yeah,
I mean, I won't even really touch penny stocks, to be honest, in those areas, because I don't have to. But yeah.
I have a Google Doc form I made, which I think covers all the points you made about, what you're looking for in a NFT project. And, I run an NFT marketing agency. And when a project comes to me, it's like, here, fill out this form first. Let's see how you do on there. And and there's so many projects like wanting to go through there. There's something else. I'm sure this is part of your process. Auditing a project that comes to me and they want to work with me. It's like your contracts. Just before we even have an engagement memo. When we start with an engagement memo, it's like you're gonna have to get yourself audited, your contract audited, the code audited, and the project audited. But that starts with fill out this questionnaire, and afterwards you're gonna do an audit, and an audit is gonna cost you 3 to 5 ETH, generally speaking, because around $20,000. Just something like that. How they respond is a big factor of what kind of project it is. Projects come out there all the time where it's another derivative, another ape derivative, another punk derivative. I've seen inside out turn sideways punks on a Tuesday, and that's minting at a 0.0088 SOL. And you have these projects that come out there and there's no innovation. Their utility is we're going to provide funding and listen to the community. The roadmap is we don't want to put out too many details, but there's no details and there's no future plans either. You have a project that's like that, and they come in and they're passionate, they're doxed, they're transparent, they have utility, quote unquote, right? They have the utility, but there's no innovation there. So there's not a red flag. They're not a bad company. They'll agree to an audit. They'll do everything. There's just nothing there. And you take that project versus another project that has none of the other things, but there's amazing innovation. There's amazing potential. So you have those two items, right? They're missing. One has 5 out of 6, and one has 1 out of 6. But it's that innovation, the idea of it actually doing something, the innovation, the utility, something that it's going to do something tremendous in the space versus all the other things that it's like, well, generally I would care about all this, but the other projects I see are boring. And sure, I very well might lose my money, but there's something about this that just attractive to me.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I'm not like the ultimate judge of what is great utility, right? Like I have not been a decade-long investor or anything like that, but the two things that I would love to look for typically is one, is there any intellectual property here? So IP, I think, is incredibly valuable. And I've had projects that have patent pending technology that have reached out to me, and it's much more interesting. I mean, when I was working at a startup a couple of years ago, we were able to raise at an 8-figure valuation because we had one patent. So I've seen the difference that it really does make. And obviously it matters what that technology is and is it groundbreaking, and then you can go into it. And then number two, I want to see something different, right? Like I don't care if it's groundbreaking at the end of the day, as long as it's something different.
The red flag ones are easier to spot if you know what to look for. You could see the inflated numbers, and you could see the fake social proof. You could see the influencers that fake minted it. The mint scams they do. You see the Discord bots. You see the Instagram bots. The part that gets tricky is which one is going to moon. And that's everyone's question is what is the next Bored Ape? What is the next CryptoPunk?
Yeah, but I don't think that that's like what an influencer's job is to tell them. I think at the end of the day, everyone is like responsible for their own financial decisions. I think it's just giving them options, right? Like whenever I do a finance space, I never tell them, hey, go buy this. I tell them this is for ideation purposes only. Make sure you do your own due diligence before making any purchases. I'm not a financial advisor. Right. So like you have to do it. But at the same time, I don't talk about terrible penny stocks. I talk about things which I think can be good. I tell people you have to go and make, an educated approach and decision. And I try to arm them with the tools to do that due diligence themselves. But like at the end of the day, like if I put, a project out there and somebody gets in and it's not because it was a rug or something, but it goes down because projects go down, right? We're in that point. I don't like lose sleep. Like I don't tell anybody to buy anything. I tell people, hey, here's a cool opportunity. Here's how to evaluate it. You have to make a decision. This is a ever-changing landscape,
FA, DYOR, all in the bio.
I'm very clear on like what my role is here. And it's not where I pick $1 million projects. If it was, I probably wouldn't be doing this. I'd have millions of dollars, right? Like
for sure.
There's clearly a cause and effect.
Here's a question for you. Are you familiar with Civic Key?
I'm not.
So Civic Key is a project on Solana that is they're an auditor. You get their stamp of approval that this project is legit. And there's a couple other. There's Rad Rugs, and there's a couple ones on Ethereum on different platforms. They have their different. They put their stamp on there, and people pay money to get audited by this company, and they put their stamp of approval on it. So the Big Daddy 8 project on Solana, if you're familiar with that rug pull, that was 1.3 million that they pulled away with in a matter of less than 15 minutes. They pulled away with 1.3 million. And this was a company that's the quote unquote gold standard for auditing in the Solana space. When they rug pull, what is their responsibility? Meaning, as an influencer, you're not telling people this is financial advice, go mint that. You're giving them the tools, you're telling them, this is how I evaluate it. You'll look through a project, and it's going to be a project that has good potential. Right. You have a company that their entire premise is they're auditing something. How does that work? Focusing more on Solana right now. Another project, Magic Eden, the biggest marketplace on Solana, the OpenSea equivalent. They have their launchpad. There was the Balloons project that went on there. They rugged for I think it was $1.5 million, and they put out a bunch of tweets saying, Magic Eden asked us for IDs and we declined. They asked us for this information, we declined. But to get their fee that they take, which they brought in like $500,000, they let us in, and we are a rug pull. They announced it. They announced a rug pull to just show how the platforms don't actually do due diligence, and they allow this to happen. For a platform like that, where's the responsibility? When OpenSea, has their things, where's the responsibility of a platform as we're trying to onboard the world into it? I don't think Web3 is ready for the world. What is the responsibility of a platform that, is supposed to be the security?
Well, that's the problem, right? Is because it's decentralized. So you're taking an area where is it
decentralized?
Right. But like the idea here is of the blockchain, right, is like we cannot be regulated. Like the FDIC can't come in and say, hey, we're going to fine you and provide insurance backup. Like that's what people wanted, right? Or did they? So I think it's like a head-to-head type thing where, yes, that type of company, right? It's good to have someone auditing, right? And that hopefully they can get it right every time, but they are not a government agency. They're just some people that decided, hey, there's an opportunity here, and maybe we can do a good job, hopefully helping people save some money, but we can also make money off of it. But at the end of the day, like when they mess up, there is no getting that money back. There is no chasing it down. It's a decentralized blockchain to random crypto wallets, right? Like that's the whole world that we're kind of moving towards and that people want, but they have to understand it does come with a lot of risk.
When a company goes public, though, and you have like OpenSea, there was the rumors that it was going to go public. Companies like that, they are pretty centralized, especially when you talk about a centralized exchange. You talk about a crypto.com, you talk about a Binance, you talk about Coinbase. They are responsible for their actions, and they are accountable to the authorities. When a Binance locks up liquidity and prevents you from making trades, that's the equivalent of Robinhood and GameStop.
Right.
So where is the accountability in the space, and why aren't we as a community holding these platforms responsible, where we just let them go time and time again? We watch them walk all over us. They do it to us and they rug pull us. It's like OpenSea. They did that announcement. Collectors can only put out 5 collections and like 50 per collection. And the community was just in an uproar because that was the point where it was so outrageous. And then they reversed that decision like less than an hour later.
Yeah.
So, it's like, but there's very few points where we see that happen.
So I think that there's 2 things going on here. One, super early days of an industry, right? Lack of competition leads to lack of innovation. So now you have competition finally. You have LooksRare, right? Or people that are trying to innovate, but they never had to innovate. And OpenSea didn't have to answer to anyone because they had the audience and they had first mover advantage. Number 2, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there's just a lack of experience, as well as probably just some like pure incompetence going on here. I don't know if you know about like the OpenSea team, but like they kind of came out of nowhere with these 2 guys. Like this platform blew up. This wasn't what they expected it to be. It wasn't what their original intention was. They're very young. right? Like they don't have years of experience, and hopefully they've got an advisor team and stuff. But like the core people here, aren't they like some of the youngest, like rich, like young to richest scale in the world? Like I'm pretty sure.
I've also heard they have 40 people on their entire staff.
Yeah, exactly. Like there is a lack of professionalism and other things. They just happen to have first mover advantage, right? So they hit the nail on the head. They had the trendy name and they got in. It's a startup. It's a startup and it's going to have startup problems. Like that's just in reality what it is.
You know, you have platforms like FTX, you know, they're coming in and doing great things, and it looks rare. And people, I would imagine, you know, people see that and they just don't migrate over. I'm trying to see, you know, what is their thought process?
Yeah, it's a good question. Hard to know, right?
I mean, it looks rare. I've been staking looks rare. I've been staking looks, making good money on that.
Token going back up.
I mean, I got out. I didn't hold, but you know, I took my bag. You know, also Time Wonderland, right? I was in time. I took my bag, and then that got rigged.
I just left the money in at this point. I just was like, I don't know. I put a couple grand in, right? On time. You're like, oh, I'll be worth $1 million at the end of the year at this rate.
And that's wild. How many, if you do a search for how many accounts had that, you know, the 3,3 in their bio and their name, that 3x3 game theory, you know, everyone's about it.
And the funniest part of the whole Time Wonderland thing was, you know, Daniel or Danielle, whatever he says his name as, then like coming out and being like, this is no longer a democratized DAO. Somebody has to make the decisions around here, and just basically like diverting from the whole idea. So I don't know, kind of hilarious. Thank God I didn't put like a ton of money in. Like I knew it was anything that has a super high APR is going to have a volatile, you know, underlying price. And like, I think people know that, like they should know that. And looks like, to me, you'll want to find the axis of, you know, high return, high safety, and where does that intersect? And then like, what are all the projects stemming from it? And I think it's good to like throw some shots in. I think if you don't have skin in the game, you're never going to learn anything because you're going to have no motivation to. It's how humans are wired. It's why we need to go to school and college and stuff, because unless someone forces us to learn, we don't do it. So I think it's a good thing to have skin in the game, but you're gonna take your hits.
How old are you?
23.
23. What is your recommendation to the 18-year-olds coming out of high school who look at this crypto world and, you know, it's the buzzword around there. Everyone's talking about crypto. Is that something they should start throwing all their money in towards and live kind of, you know, as if it's a startup? People invest into crypto like it's a startup that they're putting all their time and money into. Or should you know, Grant Cardone recently said, you know, about teenagers, you know, investing like that. Like first make yourself 100K and then start investing. Keep, you know, have yourself a base salary. Or is it now is such a bullish time? Like, no, live frugally and invest all your time and money into this now, because you have opportunities that won't necessarily be there in the future.
Okay. I think those are two different questions. First, I think that my personal recommendation to people that come to me and ask to like build a portfolio and they're like actually interested in like learning, right? Because like a lot of people come to you and say build a portfolio, but they don't actually want to learn what they're investing in. So those people, you just do, I don't know, go do ETFs. Like it doesn't matter to me. But if you actually want to learn, I think the 40-40-20 is currently what I pursue. So 40% stocks and ETFs, 40% staked crypto and stable coins, and then 20%, you know, shoot your shots. Go into some NFT projects, go into some, you know, crypto. And obviously you have to be able to do this, right? You have to be able to have some income, I think, to be able to do something like this, because if you don't have any income, it makes it life a lot harder. But that's currently what I'm prescribed to, that strategy. I think you get, you know, hopefully like stocks over time, like that 40%, like there should be long-term holds for you. Maybe you're taking like 5 to 10% of that last 20% and you're option trading with it, whatever you're doing. But like, I'm thinking 40%, you know, long-term stock holds, 40% long-term crypto staking, and then that 20% playing around with it. And then the second point that you were making, I kind of had a point on it, but I'm like losing it. But that would, so I think you asked, should they just dive into these things? No, of course not, right? They need to do research. But I think people.
No, I mean, as opposed to saving up first, as in, should they pursue this now as if this is an opportunity that they're going to miss the boat, or is it something like, no, save up first, have a stable salary, and save up that first, you know, 100K, and then go into it when you're able to.
yeah, it's very situational. I don't think you need to save like 100K. I think that's a high standard right there. I think that you can definitely save a lot less than that, maybe like 20 to 40. And then like, if you don't have like mad amounts of student loans but I think when it comes to living frugally, like you have to make the decision. Like I decided last year I was going to live very frugally, barely have to pay rent, like live very cheap. And now this year, I'm traveling more and I'm going to conferences and I'm like, okay, I'm going to Miami for 40 days or something in April into May. I'm like, okay, I could, live in a room in someone's house, right? And pay probably less and whatever, but like I'm working all day and like I kind of want like a decent view if I'm going to be sitting in my room working all day. So whatever, I got an Airbnb in like the top of one of those high rises that overlook all of Miami, right? Like I was like, okay, like I can get that and whatever. Maybe I'm paying an extra $1,000-$1,500 than I would be, but it's not the end of the world. I think it's just very situational. People are not smart with money typically. So if you're in a place where you're having upcoming bills and you don't think your income is going to be increasing, stay frugal, right? Like live cheap, nothing wrong with it. I think it's a good lifestyle. Even if it means living with family, living with friends, whatever it is. I don't see a need to have your own place right off the bat. Don't go out to eat. Don't buy steak every night. Like totally fine. But then are these opportunities going to be around in 5 to 10 years? Yes. There's always innovation. We're at the start of innovation. My idea, human history right now, like everybody's finally on the internet. Everybody's finally communicating. Like it's just going to get better. I don't think you're going to miss out on like life-changing opportunities that aren't going to present themselves in some form or another in 5 years. Like the last thing you want to do is, waste the money and get nothing from it. But then the last point I'll do, and then I know Ella has been unmuting, is it's so much easier to do research than people think. I don't get why people think it's so hard to learn. There's 2 tools that if you figure out how to use them, you're going to be good. You'll be a due diligence expert. You'll be fine. YouTube and Reddit. That's all you need. And you're good. Like you can learn how things work and understand them better than taking a class on them. That's all that you need. And people just don't even give it a shot. So that's what I'd say to that.
That's been my college, YouTube and Reddit. A little bit of Quora, some if you really want to get into it, some 4chan.
Okay.
Between,
scary,
yeah, I'm saying, between YouTube and Reddit, you're gonna get your education.
Exactly.
I think we might have covered part of it already, but I mean, something that I find quite interesting is you've got people sort of similar background to myself coming into investing because they've got involved in NFTs or crypto, which is actually right at the most riskiest end of the investing sort of spectrum, if you know what I mean. You look at all the different types of things you can invest in. Crypto really is sort of out there on the edge, but people are kind of starting there and in some ways almost maybe working backwards into traditional investing. I just wondered if you'd seen any people coming along to your spaces from that kind of background, what kind of path they've been on and whether there's anything to comment on with that. Sorry, that's not a very well formulated question. Hopefully I make sense.
That does make sense. It's hard to like completely know, because I only can see so many of the audience on the spaces at like one screenshot, right? I see like the top 10, people in the space, but then there's 400 people in the space. So like, there's probably decent overlap. There's probably people that never invested before, started doing crypto and other stuff, and then got pulled into the stocks world, got pulled into ETFs or something like that, or just started wanting to invest as a whole. I've definitely seen it in a few cases with like larger style influencers where they're like, we're only crypto people, we're only metaverse people. And now it's like, I see them trading options. I see them trading other stuff. So yeah, I think there's always going to be overlap. It's just hard to judge how large it is. But hopefully what I'm doing with my page is creating a lot of that overlap where it's like, hey, I'm going to do 20 spaces this week. And there's going to be 4 or 5 NFT spaces and, a couple of crypto spaces. And there's going to be 5 live trading spaces. And there's going to be a long-term investing space and this, and like, hopefully people can kind of pick and choose and look at that and come to more, because I do think it's important to like have a wide range, diversified place of knowledge. I just think it's how you maximize your potentials, have a diversified portfolio. Like right now I'm doing more real estate stuff. I do a real estate space every week. A lot of people have no idea how they can, learn to buy real estate. But the company that I do my real estate spaces with is called Invest with Lex. And they would actually do is they buy these large, commercial and residential real estate buildings, right, that have a bunch of tenants. And then they put them onto an actual exchange and they fractionalize the shares. And you can go ahead. It's like kind of like Fundrise, but a little bit different. Where now, if you have 150, 250 bucks, I can buy and own part of an apartment building and actually collect rent on a quarterly basis from the tenants based on the proportion that I own. So like, but people don't know, like, oh, I can own real estate, and own exposure, and it will go up, right? If the real estate market goes up and stuff, like if people knew about that 2 years ago, they probably could have made a lot of money. So I just am trying to get people into different areas, because especially ones that aren't correlated to each other. Because right now, crypto and the stock market seem to have a much higher correlation than like I think people want to admit. So I'm always looking for like, what else is there in the world that I can get involved with?
I love that. I got another question about yourself. Your Twitter, you came in the scene about 8 months ago. Have you traveled onto any other social platforms?
Yeah, I mean, I have accounts on everything, but I mean, I have an Instagram, a TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, whatever platform it is, I have it. The thing is, right now, there's two draws to Twitter. One, it's the single highest value of my time, right? Every minute that I can put into something, I have to decide, what am I going to put this minute towards? And Twitter has the highest payoff in terms of, of followers, monetary connections, everything kind of leans into it. And the other thing is, it's what do I enjoy? So I enjoy watching TikTok. I don't enjoy making them. And so I know that. And I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to do something for so many hours a week, I need to enjoy it and really like it. So with Twitter, especially Spaces, I know that I like it and I enjoy it, so I can lean into it. The other thing is, Twitter, about 2.5 months ago, made a commitment to me, which meant a lot. They accepted me into their Spark Incubator program. So there were 130 accounts accepted. And now Twitter has a deal with me where there's a few pieces to it. So one, my Spaces are prioritized in the Twitter algorithm. So they show up first on people's Spaces tabs. They show up first at the top of their tab, ahead of everyone else that they're following, ahead of other stuff, so my Spaces can grow. They also pay me on a monthly basis from Twitter. I'm in a Discord with people who work at Twitter, so I chat with them every day. We talk ideas, we talk product. So it's just like I have a much larger draw and like a reason to be on Twitter and keep my audience there than to bring them elsewhere or try to build too much elsewhere. So we'll see. I mean, I'm posting a little bit more to Insta. It's okay. It's not that hard. Like I just take a tweet, turn it into an Instagram picture and put it up. But I'm pretty focused on Twitter right now.
Are you on LinkedIn as well? Are you doing the same with
yeah,
an Instagram post or on there?
Yeah, so LinkedIn's like complex right now. So the LinkedIn page that I had for Wolf originally actually got like transitioned. So long story short, there was like multiple companies that were involved with Wolf at the start, and we've since split. But like they kind of took the Instagram and are like transitioning it to theirs or the LinkedIn. So I started a new LinkedIn. So I don't know. I have my personal LinkedIn. I'm not like super focused though on like Wolf LinkedIn. Some people are really good at LinkedIn. It's just always seemed fake to me.
What exactly is Wolf?
Wolf right now, it's come a long way. Wolf started out as a company account for a startup that I was working for. The startup was a social finance platform. It was an app. Ultimately, the startup did a full pivot into software sales. They actually patented a trading technology. Once they moved into software sales, they no longer needed the app. They shut it down. And in accordance with that, the company account was like, what happens? So I actually bought, because I built it all for the company, I bought the company account off the company. I bought the brand Wolf off the company, made it my own company, and transitioned it into a social media marketing brand. So right now, that's what I would say is yeah. So I transitioned it into this and whatever. I mean, it's in simplest terms, yeah, it's like financial or investing influence or something like that. But, call it social media marketing. It's a very difficult thing to explain to people in real life. Like, what do you do all day? I host and moderate live panels. The only way to make it make sense to people is throw numbers at them. 10,000 people tune in a day and listen to me, talk about finance. Oh, okay, now it makes sense, right? Like, that's the only way you do it.
Are you recording these podcasts?
All my Spaces are recorded. They are all posted onto Twitter. I also link them all in. I have a public Google Calendar that I put all my Spaces on each week, so everyone can see when all my Spaces are. I also put in the calendar everyone who's speaking on the space, the topic, and the recording link. So it's like a kind of one-stop shop for all my Spaces, so people can refer back to any recording links. And then I have a guy who comes in to usually about 7 to 10 Spaces a week of mine. He can't make all of them, And he's just doing it out of the nicest of his heart, like super, super sweet guy, just wants to help other people. And so he comes in and he'll screen record like 7 to 10 of them and then upload them to my YouTube and my Spotify, and then send me links so I can post those out. So I do record, and some of them end up on YouTube and Spotify. Well, not just Spotify. I say Spotify, but I use a site called Firebase, which just puts them on everything.
Yeah, similar to like Anchor.
Anchor is just Spotify, though, I'm pretty sure.
Anchor sends out to Apple Music and all RSS feeds. Yeah.
I thought they were owned by Spotify.
They were purchased by them. So they try to primarily like push you towards there, and they give you more features, but they do set it out to everyone.
Yeah, kind of like Anchor. The only difference with Firebase is that it builds you a web page too. So
very cool. I'm familiar with Firebase.
Yeah.
Very cool. So you got the podcast. The podcasts are being recorded. They're going out there. What's the next step to follow? Are you building an email list for Twitter? Let's give you a scenario, right? Twitter shuts down tomorrow. Twitter servers go down. What are you doing? Where's your audience? How do you connect to them?
Yeah, so I do have, again, that calendar. So there's 3,500 people currently subbed to that calendar. So I have all their email addresses. And I can also put calendar events on their timeline. So like if I needed to, I could be like, emergency event, Twitter's down, come to Clubhouse or something. Like I could put that on 3,500 people's calendars in a minute. In addition with that, I think at this point, if something went down, I would just kind of like collaborate with the other influencers in the space to like find where people are going. And we would all kind of move collectively, I think, just because I built those relationships. So we would move to another social audio platform, I think is what would happen. Suck to start over on Clubhouse, but like, I think my audience, they crave the spaces. They crave the content at this point. Like I know they want it. They're my DMs asking me for more, can you do a space on this, space on that? So I think we move somewhere. And just kind of keep rolling with it. But hopefully it doesn't go down. They're a multi-billion-dollar company, and I don't think Twitter's going anywhere. Like it's gonna be around a while. So
yeah. It's always about how you can convert your audience. I know with TikTokers, the question always was, whether or not you're going to be a real influencer in the space and be able to turn yourself into a brand versus just be a TikToker star, was whether you could convert your audience over to Instagram or to YouTube and start, selling merch or transition into music or etc.
Right. So that's why I built Wolf as a brand, right? I have a personal account. It has like 10K followers, but I use the brand account. And what that's going to allow me to do is hopefully in maybe a month or two, I'll probably be looking to have like another person that's working with me on the brand that I can sub in for, hey, I need 10, 15 hours of spaces this week. I have other stuff to do. I'm traveling. I'm going to a conference. I can't do my spaces these 2 days. Can you come in and host the spaces from the Wolf account for me? Right. So it might be a little bit of a shock to some people, right? There's a different voice or something, but at the end of the day, they're getting the content, they're getting the same people. And I would make sure the person is trained and, well polished and everything. So yeah, like that would, I guess, be next steps is to like build it out. So like, I want to keep doing spaces for a long time with my community, but like having somebody else that does 15 to 20 hours a week, that will open up my time because I want to travel and meet people and do business deals and collaborate in person. So there's a lot kind of on the line and, do more video content, do other type stuff. But to me, it's like right now I'm kind of running the whole show and doing, technicals and this and that and that. And like, ideally in a world, there's a team around me that is helping with more of the content structure and the technical side of things. And I'm just speaking on camera, putting stuff together. Like right now, like I don't have a weekend. Like, I've been on meetings for the last 4 hours and, on a Sunday, and I have another one starting in 2 minutes, by the way, at 2:30, just a heads up. So you probably have to wrap up, but like, this is just going. So we'll see what happens next. I'm just taking it one step at a time.
All right. And so we've got one last question for you before we wrap up. What is your audio setup? How do you do your spaces?
I just do my spaces off my phone. So I was actually doing them off my Galaxy for a long time until spaces started crashing on Android back in December. You stopped being able to use it. Big shout out to one of my friends. I won't name him on here, but basically he wanted me to do some spaces for him and kind of like some promo stuff. And I was like, okay, like I really want to, but like I'm having these problems with my phone and like I don't really have like a bunch of free capital right now. Like I don't really know if I want to get the iPhones. I want to get the new iPhones. Or I want to get this, that. And he goes, put the new iPhone, whatever you want, in the cart. Put the AirPods in the cart. It's on me. Like I got you. And so just bought me the 13 Pro. and the AirPods Max. So that's what I do all my spaces off of. Works for me. So that's been the setup.
You're using the default microphone on there.
Yeah. I mean, or whatever's built into the AirPods. Yeah. I see. It seems like both work fine. Like I don't have to plug anything in.
We got to get you a setup. We need to get you a studio mic. I
mean, I've got a mic for like computer stuff. I don't know if this is not going to be on the screen.
You connect that into your phone.
But I don't think I need to. I think my sound quality is pretty good.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah. Who knows? Life's a trip.
Ella, is there any last questions?
No, just want to say thank you so much for talking to us. It's been super interesting listening to you. It really, really is. So thank you so much for your time. You've been awesome.
Pleasure chatting. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you're incredible. Awesome. Really appreciate you coming up here. I look forward to connecting more.
Absolutely.
And I have to tune into some spaces.
Yeah, tune in pretty much any time of the week.
Awesome, man.
All right. Take care.